Hello and welcome to this podcast edition of I think I'm calling it the Mando Debrief still. Here on the Geek End, a deeper dive into the most recent of chapters from The Mandalorian, that being Chapter 14, The Tragedy. I'm Jamie, and once again, far from a tragedy, I am joined by a fellow creator, Liam Robertson, who is he's a journalist, a video game journalist and creator. Liam, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Yeah, man, doing good, thanks. Good to talk to you. Just forgetting the fact that we have been chatting for about half an hour before hitting record on this thing. But for those who are discovering you for the first time, where can people find you? And also just tell us a little bit about what you do as well.
All right. Well, my name is Liam Robertson, as Jamie mentioned. I don't typically write about Star Wars and that type of thing, but I mostly write about video games. I have done one Star Wars video before, which I guess we could talk about maybe, but I mostly write about cancelled video games, usually that use famous licenses such as Marvel or DC or Star Wars, that type of thing. But yeah, I am big into Star Wars, and I guess that's why I'm here. You can my series on YouTube is called Game History Secrets, which you can find on YouTube. Just search that or search my name or something. And I also used to do a series, which I imagine probably some of your viewers might have seen, called Unseen 64. And I did a Star Wars video about kind of unreleased, unproduced Star Wars games, such as a Chewbacca game that George Lucas shot down some years ago.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I need to watch this.
Do you remember the game Force Unleashed? Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was on the Wii, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Wii and the Xbox 360. That originally, that team, if I'm remembering correctly, wanted to do some kind of Chewbacca spin-off, and George Lucas said, no, we're not doing that. I think it might have been like an origin story or something, and I imagine back then probably Lucas might have had something in mind for the origins or the story of Chewbacca, and so it didn't get made.
Oh, man. Well, I think now we're in a kind of land of saying never say never with Star Wars. Old ideas seem to be getting brought back into the fray, which we'll get onto with The Mandalorian. But also you make videos for Did You Know Gaming as well, which I don't think you mentioned.
Yeah, well, all those videos are on Did You Know Gaming. You can find them on there. My series, again, Game History Secrets. Check that out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, so I'm getting confused because you've got your own YouTube channel as well.
Yeah. I don't tend to make a whole lot of stuff on there, but I sometimes interview game developers and stuff like that. And my YouTube channel, I think it's called Liam R Productions on YouTube, youtube.com/Liam R Productions. And it's just little interviews with game developers and sometimes, behind the scenes gossip and stuff like that, and things that I've uncovered that you might find interesting if you're into video games.
Yeah, and I've you know me, Liam. I'm not a big gamer, so a lot of what you've said has confused me. Until you had me at Chewbacca. I was in then.
Yeah.
And I remember the Force Unleashed, but so I was blurring your channel there, but with Did You Know Gaming. But I am easily confused in all aspects of life. But I will link to all of that in the video description if people want to go and find you.
Cool.
And moving sort of slowly into The Mandalorian Chapter 14. Before we get into it, what was your entry point into Star Wars?
Ooh, wow, that would have been many years ago, many moons ago, Jamie. I think Star Wars for me, when I was very, very young, probably about 5 or 6, it was the first kind of live action movie series that I can remember getting into. I think before then it would have just been cartoons and stuff, But then I think, if I remember correctly, a family member had the original trilogy on VHS, and maybe they were like taped off ITV. I can't remember, but I remember we definitely did have tapes, and I watched them again and again and again. Just those original 3 movies, and then the prequels came out as well when I was a kid, and I was somewhat into those, but not as much.
And your dedication has continued, and also you've more or less gone off in in all of the directions, or followed Star Wars off in all of the directions it's gone into. You mentioned the video games, but also I know that you've watched all of the Clone Wars. I don't know about Rebels though. Have you seen Rebels?
I've seen Rebels, yeah, I've seen all the films, all the TV shows, I've even enjoyed some of them, and yeah, Rebels is good, Rebels is pretty good, I think it's worth watching. I think Clone Wars is probably a little bit better. Watch that first and then watch Rebels. Both of them, I think, especially now if you're following The Mandalorian, it has paid dividends to watch those shows, really. I did not expect these tie-ins when I first watched them. I actually watched the Clone Wars for the first time this year. When lockdown happened, I was like, okay, we got Disney Plus now. I can just binge this whole thing and get it over with. And I really enjoyed it.
So, looking at season 2, before we get into chapter 14, looking at season 2 up to chapter 14, how has it been for you so far, not including chapter 14, overall?
It has been very good. I really enjoyed that Ahsoka episode last week. Shame you didn't have me on then because I'm a big Ahsoka boy.
You can talk about it now. That's fine.
Yeah, Jamie, we've been talking way too long already, so I'm not gonna talk about an entirely different episode. Otherwise, this is gonna go on forever.
For anyone watching, we were meant to start this 40 minutes ago, and the reason we didn't start 40 minutes ago wasn't because either of us were late or anything. We just ended up chatting about stuff for 40 minutes and I hadn't even hit record, which is probably for the best, to be honest. But so you enjoyed the Ahsoka episode?
I did. I think that might be, well, it's up there. There have been a number of really good episodes this season. I think maybe the one with Bo-Katan was my favourite. And maybe this one, I don't know. We'll go on to it, but I think this season has been astounding. It has been much better, I think, than the first season, and I enjoyed the first season a lot. But this one is where we're really getting into the kind of the grander, overarching story of what the Mandalorian is going to be, and we've got the Darksaber and Bo-Katan. You know, the universe is being filled in a lot more. There's a lot more world building going on, and different major characters being drawn together, so we're starting to get a bigger sense of what the grander story will be in the long run.
Yeah, and actually, I have to say as well, I agree with you. And all of the things I haven't liked about The Mandalorian, and this is across the 2 seasons, are, not big problems at all. It's the sort of shorter durations, particularly with season 1, and also the kind of side questy things, as I call them, because I don't like saying filler anymore. And it's sort of slowly but surely being proven that nothing's been filler, really, because all of these little details that you kind of thought were, just filler, are sort of coming back and being tied up again into the overall plot. So, yeah, looking at chapter 14, I have to say, even though now I'm realizing that all these things that I've complained about a little bit in the past are starting to be connected, I still had my kind of assumptions in the back of my mind, at least, that this was going to be a kind of transitional episode. So I was pretty surprised when the episode started and we were pretty much in or on or around Typhon.
Yeah. I mean, this episode really surprised me with its setup. It was, all gas, no brakes from the very start, and, didn't wait around. I really expected, after what Ahsoka said on the last episode, she's talking about scaling some mountain to find this stone thing, and I thought, we're going to go off on a big quest, and maybe we're going to get a whole episode of that. But it didn't wait around. He pretty much just flies to that thing, and it's just on a hill somewhere, and he puts Grogu down there, and I mean, it was great. It didn't waste any time, and within like 5 minutes, we were into an action sequence just about, and that was great.
And that never really stopped then, that action sequence, I think. But yeah, I kind of, to be honest, I didn't think we'd spend much time on Typhon this episode. I thought at the most, at best, if you like, he would arrive there at the end, having gone somewhere else to get spaceship juice or something, and then the person with the spaceship juice says, well, you can have it, but you've got to do this for me first. That I was expecting that kind of thing, before we got to Typhon. But yeah, straight there. But before we got there, There was just a few moments really aboard the Razor Crest, R.I.P., where I thought it was quite an interesting and fun scene between Din and Grogu, where he was sort of messing around with the ball and kind of, attempting to train him. Because, like that's the question, isn't it, really, where this is all going to end and where specifically Grogu's going to end. And for me, this scene sort of really planted the seed that Grogu doesn't necessarily need to go off with a Jedi, because for me, it felt like a transition in Din's mind from Grogu being a quest to him into Grogu being a son for him, because he was sort of like, he kept repeating, yes, the quest, it's the right thing to do. It was almost like he's trying to convince himself that the quest is the right thing to do because he's having doubts now.
Yeah, they're definitely starting to seed that, I think, into his character development, that he has some sort of emotional attachment to the child. I'm still getting used to calling him Grogu. But yeah, I really like that moment. I like it when we get these nice intimate moments between the two of them, where we get to just see, what's his name, Pedro Pascal, just interact with the puppet and act his heart out and everything, which you can only do so much in a suit of armor, but he does a good job. And I think something that this show might not get as much credit as it deserves for is the comedy. And I really like that moment where he's just kind of amusing himself with Grogu, and he perks up and he's still amused by that, and I like that. I think that's really funny.
Yeah, I think the last 2 episodes have opened with sort of fun little moments between the two. Was the episode before, the Ahsoka episode, was that the one that opened with Grogu trying to fix the ship with the wires?
I think, yeah, it was towards the start of the episode, certainly. Yeah, I really like those moments where we get to see them just kind of hang out and do stuff.
But no Jedi showed up, Grogu, because I felt that, like, when Din was saying all of the stuff, no, I have to, we have to get you to a Jedi, you're too powerful, etc. I don't know. I'm just looking at Grogu. We don't know what Grogu's thinking. We don't know what he's saying. But just looking at him, it was almost like, for me, he looked like he's not interested. He's really not interested. Like, he would be happier to stay with Din. And when he was first put on the rock thing, and the force field type thing didn't appear for so long, I thought it was, out of protest from Grogu that he didn't want to do this. But obviously he did do it, which led to the problem of him essentially being trapped there whilst danger was arriving. But no Jedi showed up. Do you think that's the end of that, or do you think we may still have a Jedi show up?
I think they wouldn't have done, we talked about this before. I think everything that is put into the show is very intently done, and it comes back around, doesn't it? They don't waste time. We've complained about filler in the past, some people, but it does come back around. And I don't think they would have done this whole thing and they wouldn't have had him sat on the rock for so long if there wasn't something that he had contacted. I don't know who it would be, because there really aren't that many Jedi or like Force sensitive beings left, as far as I know. Like, there's Luke and Leia and Ahsoka, obviously, but it's not going to be her. Or
there's talk of Ezra, possibly, isn't there?
Yeah, potentially Ezra. You don't really know what happened. Kind of a Rebels spoiler, but you don't really know where he is or what happened to him after the finale of that. I think he's probably a good candidate to show up next season, assuming that Disney isn't planning some kind of CGI Rebels successor, which they may well be. I don't know. That might be. I could see Ezra coming into it. Like, that would be a really cool character, I think, to bring into live action. But I think he'd probably be my bet, unless we are going to get maybe a little Luke cameo, potentially. That might be a bit too soon in the show to do something that big. But I could see definitely one day, they pull the trigger and they get a little cameo from Mark Hamill or another actor playing a younger Luke or something.
Yeah, I wouldn't, as long as Hamill's alive, I wouldn't want another actor to play him. And I generally haven't been, I've admired the technology
Yeah.
what they have pulled off. But I generally haven't been a fan of the sort of, bringing Peter Cushing back to life in Rogue One. There was something not quite. It's not quite there, and the de-aged Leia in Rogue One, played by Ingvild Delia, not quite there. But I have to say, the de-aged Hamill in The Rise of Skywalker, when him and Leia are having their sort of training battle, I thought that was the best I've seen so far in a Star Wars film. Anyway.
Yeah, I think one day we could get there, and I think that precedent shows you it's not beyond the realm of possibility. I think I would prefer just a different actor, and I know that, if I remember correctly, Mark Hamill has kind of, given his approval for potentially Sebastian Stan, I think his name is, for doing it, the guy who plays Bucky in the Marvel films, the Winter Soldier, and they look very similar, so maybe him, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, we shall see. We shall see. But I mean, are you expecting Grogu to go off with a Jedi? I mean, I'm thinking him and Din are going to go off and do their own thing. But what are you thinking here?
Yeah, I could see potentially just a Jedi kind of joins the entourage at some point, like we have this ever expanding cast of characters, and it might be cool maybe if Grogu gets a second dad and starts hanging around and sort of training him, because Din's great, but he doesn't have that capacity to train Grogu, and he clearly has a lot of potential, as we see in this episode.
Another possibility with Grogu, and perhaps there were some little hints to it at the end of this chapter. Could Grogu break bad?
Yeah. I think this is sort of something they foreshadowed with Ahsoka, right? And that is sort of a bit of the Jedi philosophy, is that you got to train them young, and he has certain emotional attachments that could, like in the way that Anakin did, he had these emotional attachments that in a way he sort of fell victim to, didn't he? So I feel like they're going for something similar here. Maybe Grogu is a bit mad because he doesn't, where's his dad gone, and he's been taken off, and maybe we're gonna see Moff Gideon potentially try to manipulate him and get him to bring out some of that darkness. I don't know, but I think it's interesting.
Yeah, and also I think Ahsoka said something, didn't she? That he needs you. He's grown such a strong, you as in Din, he's grown such a strong bond to you. He's vulnerable without you, and I suppose being in the hands of Gus Gideon, away from Din, he can be manipulated more, because she was a little bit worried about him, wasn't she?
Yeah, I'll definitely be interested to see how that plays out. And I was really afraid for a second that he was gonna mutilate him with the Darksaber or something. He's holding it real close to him. I was like, oh my god, please do not hurt the boy.
Yeah, he was teasing him as if it was a toy that he's not quite old enough to play with yet.
Yeah, by the way, I hope that's something they never do, is give Grogu a lightsaber, because I'll tune out if they start doing the Yoda flipping around stuff that they did in Attack of the Clones.
Oh yeah, Attack of the Clones style. Yeah, no, I'm not sure we'll get that far. I'm kind of hoping personally that Grogu, because whatever Jedi shows up, if one shows up, he is eventually going to end up at Luke's training temple, circa sequel trilogy, or the build up to the sequel trilogy era, and we know that won't end well for him. So I'm kind of hoping he just ditches the Jedi way and goes off with Din personally. But you mentioned the action, the kind of pretty much once we got onto Typhon, the pretty much never ending action. It was very, I think, the most violent yet, and it had Robert Rodriguez sort of written all over it. Really, it was like he was playing with his action figures almost. It was, I felt anyway, pretty sort of gritty for Star Wars anyway.
Yeah, certainly. I really get a kick out of it. It's still novel to me anytime we see someone use a conventional weapon in Star Wars to hammer some stormtroopers like Boba was doing here. and he had that. I don't know what type of weapon that is. It looks like some kind of like implement for like harvesting corn. He's got this big scythe looking thing, and he's clubbing these guys, and it has spikes in the end. Yeah, it was pretty lethal. I think that was really cool though. I don't know what that thing is that he's got there. I don't know if you do, but I thought that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet. But there's this thing that's been going on with the last few episodes now, where we're getting less screen time with Din and Grogu, and I've said this before in these videos, but there's almost a danger of Din getting overshadowed because Boba's weapon was pretty sweet, but Boba all round he was badass. He was scene stealing. Was, you could say Bo-Katan in that episode and Ahsoka in her episode.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised, not only by the action, but the characterization of Boba is very different from what I expected. Now, I'm not sure how far you got into Clone Wars, but Boba is in that. And in that show, he's kind of a dick. He's very standoffish and aggressive, and he's this wannabe crime lord, and I don't know what happened. Maybe the Sarlacc pit mellowed him out a bit, but now he's much more agreeable, and he's like, whoa, let's lower our weapons and have a chat. He's clearly chilled out a lot more now, and I like that. I was really expecting him to be at odds with Din, and there was going to be some sort of rivalry, especially since we got that shot of him watching him in the desert. I thought, oh god, when the slave one showed up, I thought, oh my god, this is going to be a big fight scene or something like that. This isn't going to end well for him. But I'm really glad that it definitely subverted that expectation for me, and it's cool to see that they're seemingly friends, and they're going to assemble some sort of team and all that.
Yeah, because Boba, whether you've seen Clone Wars or not, you kind of, even though Boba was doing a job in the original trilogy, he was, more, you're leaning more towards the bad side than, with the goodies. And someone was telling me as well in the Boba Fett comics as well, he's been very much in it for himself and a bit of a bad guy. So it was surprising to sort of see him, but then see him act in this way, essentially being a good guy and, really wanting to be loyal to his deal with Din. But I'm not convinced that, obviously we had a kind of death in this episode with the Razor Crest getting blown up. But someone's got to go in this series, in this season anyway. I'm just wondering, is it Boba?
No way. Like, they've just brought him back. That would be the biggest blue balling in the world if they did that. After all these years, finally they bring him back, and I don't know, maybe he'll get his jetpack sort of like nudged again, and he'll fly off into another pit. Hopefully not.
No, maybe, and that would be nice. But I'm just thinking, like, there is talk of a short, sort of Kenobi-style short spin-off series with Boba Fett. Could that be, a 3 to 4 episode thing about him escaping the Sarlacc pit? A prequel, if you will.
I don't think we need any further explanation on that. I think it was just enough in the first episode, that little subtle moment where they go, oh, that monster ate the Sarlacc pit. Okay, I can buy that Boba escaped somehow. He's Boba Fett. He's more than capable. And maybe it was a bit traumatic for him, and he's clearly got some scars from it. But I don't really need a whole episode, or certainly not a series, on how he survived in the Sarlacc pit or escaped. It's not that interesting to me, to be honest. Like, that's the least interesting part of him, is that he survived the pit thing that looks like a giant you-know-what. Mm-hmm. So I'm fine with that. Let's just move along and let's see Boba do cool things.
Okay, all right, I take it back. Boba won't die, but somebody's got to die. Maybe Greef. Maybe Greef's the one.
Is that
Carl Weathers?
Bill Burr?
No, Carl Weathers.
Oh, right.
I imagine Carl Weathers, Greef, will join the gang for the next episode when they go off to try and rescue. I'm obsessing with death here. I just feel like somebody's got to go.
You might be right. Yeah, I could see something like that happening. What do you think of the whole idea of them assembling this team? You know, they got it's kind of like, I don't know, like an Avengers style team.
Yeah.
He's putting together. Mando going to Cara Dune at the end, like, oh, where's this guy? We've got to spring Bill Burr out of prison.
Yeah, that seems. I mean, it seems natural for him to go to Cara and to Grief, because they're like his bezies at this point, and they sort of owe Mando one in a way for helping to clear that Imperial base on Navarro. So that for me makes sense, and obviously he needs all the help he can get right now. He hasn't even got a ship, has he? So he needs Boba for wheels more than anything. But the Bill Burr thing, is a little bit. It'll probably become less random. I'm sure it will, but it seems a bit random. And I like Bill Burr, but, you know, his character from what I've seen so far in Star Wars, I'm not, didn't particularly need to see again, but who knows?
Yeah, it was clearly something that was, it was something they'd set up to happen at some point. I just think, I wish it had happened a bit more naturally. I know Bill Burr, I think from what I remember, his character is like an expert on springing people out of prison.
Right.
So that might make sense. I think that's the only reason they've done it. And I'm looking forward to seeing him again. Like, that character is kind of cool. He had that cool, like, Predator style shoulder turret thing that he had. So that was cool. But yeah, it is a little bit far fetched, isn't it? Like, the last time he saw that guy, he couldn't be trusted. He betrayed Mando. And, why would Bill Burr help him? I don't remember the guy's name, so we're just going to call him Bill Burr. But, I don't know why he would trust him. Is it really worth springing this untrustworthy criminal out of prison when it will put a target on Mando's back? Like, the Republic isn't going to stand for that, are they?
No, but I suppose we will find out pretty soon. And I would imagine as well that... Bo-Katan would sort of join the party as well, because I think Mando went away from them knowing that she was desperate to find Gideon. I think, am I right in saying that? Did Mando know what? I know he doesn't know about the Darksaber, but he knew that she was after, the Empire. So it would surely make sense for him to call her up as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he has a way to correspond with her, but I would be very surprised if at some point she doesn't come back in these last 2 episodes. Like, maybe they've run into them on the way there or something like that. I don't know. I think she will come back into it pretty soon. She's a pretty significant character. And, she's obviously got that grudge with Gideon and wants the Darksaber, so she'll definitely come back. I'm looking forward to these last 2 episodes. I think it's going to be pretty sweet.
Finally, what would be, for Chapter 14, what score would you give it? Marks out of 10, let's say.
I would go with something like an 8, I'd say. It was, a lot of fanboy dreams come true. It was very enjoyable. Probably up there with one of the best episodes of the season. I did think in some parts the direction of the action sequences was a bit hit and miss. Like, there were a couple of like naff looking CGI shots, in my opinion, just compared to the standard of the rest of the show, which has been so phenomenal. And that's not to say that it was bad or anything. I just thought like there were a couple of shots where there were a few too many cuts, editing wise, and I would have tweaked some things if I was the armchair director, but that's kind of nitpicking. Ultimately, it was a very fast, very fun episode.
Yeah, no, I've seen a few people say it looked a bit like a fan film at times, and I think that's partly because of the planet. It didn't, it looked like Earth, really, didn't it?
Right.
It looked like it could be in Wales, or I don't think anybody's ever compared Wales to California before, but it could be just out of LA more likely than Wales, perhaps. But it looked sort of real worldly, like in daylight as well, where fans could go out, to Wales or outside of LA and shoot on some mountains in the daylight, because we haven't got the expensive lighting, etc., and studios and what have you. So, yeah, I can kind of see where people are coming from. Visually, the planet wasn't particularly interesting.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't so much mind it, but I will be honest though, that was the first time when watching this show where I thought, oh, this is on Earth. These are some actors that are running around in the desert. You know what I mean? Like, it did take me out of it for just a brief moment, and that has never happened. Normally I'm thinking, right, we're on Tatooine, we're on this planet, and I'm not thinking about the locations. Maybe you are, JB, because that's your thing. But to me, I'm engrossed in the episode. I'm fine. It's not a problem. But I get what you mean. I like my Star Wars plants to look a bit more alien than that.
Yeah, no, I do obsess a little bit about the locations, but then The Mandalorian is it's sort of scuppered my plans to make a location video for, because everything's done in the volume, isn't it? Although I'm sure some of it's not. I'd like to know what's not. But Liam, thank you very much for joining me for this podcast edition of the Mando Debrief, I'm sort of calling it, but just remind people where they can find you.
Yeah, on Twitter, I'm at Dr_Cupcakes. Don't ask me why, I don't know. And on YouTube, I have a series called Game History Secrets, and we talk about sort of unreleased video games, and I kind of speak to the developers about those, and I do little documentaries on unreleased video games. So yeah, check that out. And thanks for having me on, Jamie. It's been fun.
No, you're welcome, mate. Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody who's still here listening.